the title of this episode, which is Being an Introvert is Not a Weakness. I was starting to touch on this in my earlier live stream today, but this is something that is quite near and dear to my heart. I'm an introvert. I've been a technical introvert my whole life. And, my heart goes out to a lot of introverts out there. There's a lot of highly talented people out there that are reaping the advantages of being an introvert, and there are many, but are laboring under the disadvantages of being an introvert. And sometimes, something I've noticed over the course of my life, that's because introverts, it's not that they can't do the things that make them seem more like an extrovert, it's just they don't place any value on it, which is hurting them. So we're going to get into that. Yeah. It's true. It's true. And I know a lot of you guys, this may strike a chord with you, because I know that there's a lot of introverts on YouTube and a lot of technical people. And you're probably in the same boat that I was. But if you can master this stuff, it's like taking candy from a fool. Right? You've heard that expression? A baby and its money are soon parted. Take it from me. I know these things. Okay, so let's get into it. First of all, let's define the term introvert so everybody knows what the hell I'm talking about. The definition that I learned many, many years ago of the word introvert, and I'm using it in the sense of the Myers-Briggs type indicator. This is something that I think is still really good. It seems to have fallen from favor somewhat, but I have my own theories on that. It's because they sort of tacked a bunch of crap onto it that was a bunch of psychobabble BS, and obviously that stuff is not true. And so they dismissed the whole thing as being pseudoscience, which in my experience, it isn't. I've been up against this thing many times, but that's another matter. The definition of introvert in that sense that I'm using is someone who can do social interaction, but they don't enjoy it. It's an energy draining experience for them. So if you're an introvert, it doesn't mean that you can't be social. Doesn't mean that you can't do public speaking. Doesn't mean that you can't present. It doesn't mean that you can't have a conversation with somebody else. It doesn't mean that you can't participate in a meeting or a group activity or some kind. It just means that at the end of the day, those activities are an energy draining experience. It's not what you do for fun. It's something that you do because you feel you have to do it and you can do it, but it's not your idea of fun. And this is contrasted with an extrovert. The extrovert is the opposite. Someone who can do social interaction, just like an introvert can. The only difference is that they enjoy it. It's an energy charging experience for them. They find that being on their own is an energy draining experience. They get lonely, they get bored, they start to feel bad about themselves, they start to feel isolated from the rest of society, and they start to feel uncomfortable. Introverts love that. Introverts love being on their own. You want to read a book, you want to watch TV, you want to, go on the computer or something, and you feel good. You feel like this is an energy charging experience. So that's the definitions I'm working with. An introvert is someone who can do social interaction, but it's an energy draining experience, right? I'm a near complete total introvert. I have been so my entire life. When I started out, I had very under average social skills, and I took a degree in engineering, and I was with a lot of people like me. And then I got out into the real world and started to interact with people in a sort of employment type situation. And over the years, gradually, little by little, I learned how to do social skills, how to do social interaction. Things that other people had grown up being taught how to do, and it became part of their personality. I never really got that for some reason, or I never really responded to it. So if you are in a similar situation, you can maybe understand. And had I learned this stuff sooner, my career would have taken off at least 10 years earlier than it actually did. So very, very important to learn. And the other thing that I learned about it was that this stuff is really not rocket science. It's really not hard to learn how to interact with somebody. It's really not hard to learn how to be likable to someone when you first meet them, right? When someone teaches you, okay, this is this principle, this is this principle, this is this other principle, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And then you go and apply those, right? Okay. So now that we all know what an introvert is, and maybe you can identify somewhat with what I've been talking about, this might apply to you. Okay. Something else I've noticed out in the real world is that whether this is real or imagined, a lot of introverts are made to feel that being an introvert is a tremendous disadvantage. And I don't know if you've experienced this. You know, I'm not sure if this is something that's imagined or it's something that is real. Like extroverts, like I think what's real is that extroverts look down on introverts the same way that introverts look down on extroverts. Introverts think that, you know, these extroverts, they're just spending all their time flapping their gums and, you know, talking to each other while simultaneously not getting any work done, not being able to focus on anything. It's all just cosmetics, window dressing, and there's no substance there, right? And then they dismiss that and they look down on extroverts. Meanwhile, extroverts, they have this negative opinion of introverts, saying these are like loners. They're people that just don't get how the world works. You have to interact with people. Everything is based on interaction. You know, these people just seem to want to just go lock themselves in their bedroom and stay there forever and never come out. And, you know, it's off-putting and it's antisocial, right? They need to develop their social skills because, let me tell you, interacting with introverts is unpleasant and it's awkward and, you know, it's not enjoyable. They don't make you feel good about yourself. They make everything feel awkward and clunky when you try and interact with them, right? So I know that's true. That's the prevailing attitudes. Everybody tends to value the things that they have and the traits they themselves have. And everyone tends to look down on people that don't have those traits or those values or those things, right? This is a sort of bias we all have. I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know what that's called, but I know that's real. But something that I talk about a lot on this channel is job interviews. And one common theme of a lot of job interviews is that if you encounter a recruiter, usually you're encountering someone who's extroverted. After all, they've chosen to do as their career something that involves a lot of interacting with new people, right? They're interviewing people for jobs. They sit in job interviews every day, right? So the crux of what they do for a living is based on interpersonal communication. That's extrovert territory, right? To choose that and to want to do it and to enjoy doing it, you're an extrovert. So in the whole job interview thing, if you're an extrovert or an introvert, you tend to be interviewed for a job by an extrovert. And for extroverts, this is not an issue. You actually kind of can connect more with people like you. But if you're an introvert, it feels a lot of times like you're at a significant disadvantage. You're being judged by someone who doesn't place value on the things that you place value on. Instead, they tend to undervalue or dismiss things that you consider valuable. And their assessment of different things is completely different. Like, for example, they might ask you, you know, what social activities do you enjoy doing? And, you know, they're expecting you to say, oh, I love to do sports. I love to do fishing. I don't count fishing as a sport, by the way. I mean, if you count taking a 3-hour nap as sport, I don't think that qualifies. But, you know, like, they think that team building exercises are like this fabulous thing that's very effective, right? For example, lots of introverts think the exact opposite, including myself. I mean, it has some limited value, but it's very off-putting to introverts. So the problem is if they ask you a question like that in a job interview, they're going to judge you if you say something like, oh, I don't really do any of that. Instead, I like to do this, and they're going to go, bad answer, right? You see, because they have a different value system to introverts. So I think it's not all in our heads. This is a real thing. And that if you're an introvert, you can be made to feel like that's a significant disadvantage when it really isn't. Okay. One thing that's really comforting for a lot of introverts to know is that if you look throughout history and you look at the people that have driven the world forward, they've invented things, they've innovated in some way, they've discovered new things. Who are those people? They're introverts, almost to a person, right? Who made all the great discoveries? Who are the innovators that really took things and popularized them? They're all introverts, because extroverts are off talking to everyone. Introverts are the type of people that can focus on something almost to an obsessive degree, which is kind of what's required to be a visionary or to imagine something that we don't already see, something that doesn't exist that could exist, right? These are introverts. They're the ones that actually move the world forward. So that's encouraging. It's encouraging knowing that. Doesn't necessarily help us all in our lives knowing that, but it's kind of comforting on some level to know that. Now, I've sung a lot of praises of introverts, okay? Let's get into some of the disadvantages of being an introvert that may strike a chord with you. You may have experienced some of these things, okay? One kind of fact of the business world, certainly, is that everything is based on interactions, right? You might have the illusion that things happen in isolation. Like let's say you have a technical type job and you work at your workstation or wherever you work, and you're alone in a room sometimes, and that's how you do your job. You process forms, you write code, you make decisions about things, right? Whether you're a civil lawyer doing contract law, or you're a developer, or you're an accountant, or you're some kind of administrator, you get the illusion that this is just solo work. Because a lot of what's actually happening in the business world is obfuscated from you. You're a little piece of the puzzle, but you don't see the rest of the puzzle, right? Everything is based on interaction. Probably the easiest way to explain it is if you're in business selling something, all businesses sell something, right? You at least need customers, right? You have to connect with customers. You have to be able to communicate to them. You have to be able to persuade them in some way, shape, or form, and then interact with them, right? How else are they going to buy your thing? How else is a transaction going to take place, right? It's about connecting. And the more successful the business is, the more customers they will reach and convince and connect with and interact with, right? So hopefully everybody can understand that very basic principle. Now expand this principle to suppliers, to knowing what's going on out in their industry, what their competitors are doing, what new technology and innovation is happening. If you're aware of it and you understand it, that will gain you advantages and allow you to do more business, right? So the more you interact with the environment, with the business environment, all the players in your business, all the suppliers, all the vendors, all the regulators, all, the government, all the innovators, the customers, the more successful you will be, right? So hopefully you're with me so far. The more connections you have to other people, the better, right? Now, all of those people, you don't necessarily have to be locked in some kind of business relationship with them, right? Let's take suppliers. You don't just interact with people that you have a partnership with. You're out there investigating what suppliers are out there, what precisely they do, what are their plans, what are they trying to do, what's their attitude towards this, what are, what type of people are they, what direction are they going in, etc. So gaining knowledge about all the other alternatives out there is very useful. That means that you don't just have to connect with people that you're doing business with, but all the other people out there too, so that you can make intelligent decisions about who to work with, because you know a lot of different people, a lot of different potential partners, right? So the more connections you have and the better quality of those relationships, the more advantages you will have, right? So that's another example of how, like, connections, the more connections you have and the better quality connections, that will make you more successful. So everything is based on interaction. I could go on forever giving you all kinds of examples, but hopefully that makes sense, right? A lot of introverts, they don't place value on any of that. They just say, no, talking to people is a waste of time, especially if there's no tangible transaction or, purpose to it. But just talking to people for the sake of talking to people is useless. Incorrect. Now, certainly if you have real work to do, it makes more sense maybe to focus on the real work you have to do rather than that, which could be optional. But in the end, it's that kind of stuff that leads to success, right? Who gets promoted in businesses? If you get a job and then you want to get promoted, is it the hardest worker? Is it the most knowledgeable worker? Usually not. Sometimes it happens like that, but usually not. Usually it's the most connected worker, the person that has great relationships with a lot of people, and which something that's directly correlated to it is the person that is the most likable, right? Who you can have a conversation with and you go away from the conversation thinking, I actually enjoyed that. As opposed to walking away from the conversation thinking, I never want to see that person again. I hate their guts, right? So hopefully I've sold you on this idea. If you haven't sort of figured that out already, hopefully you can start to see the advantage of some of this activity, even though you're an introvert, even though you may not have placed value on this kind of activity before, And I remember being an engineer. I remember being in university for an engineer, like in a past life, like seems like 150 years ago. And I remember they would say stuff like this to further this introverted type thinking. They would say, like, it's all about substance. It's not about how popular you are. It's not about, all this other fluff. It's about who gets the right answer. And that's true, but that's an oversimplification. In the real world, you need both. You need the person who gets the right answer, plus the person that everyone wants to work with because they're awesome and who knows how to talk to people and make them feel good about themselves and is amenable to talking with other people and interacting with them. Imagine if you could do both, right? You had brains, you had talent, plus people love dealing with you. And they walk away from every interaction with you thinking, wow, that was great. I'd love to talk to that person again, right? Wouldn't it be great if you could have both? Those are the people that end up really succeeding. This is why I'm doing this type of live stream, because I think that certainly I didn't know this when I was starting out. And I know a lot of other people that are not aware of this. Okay, so what extroverts miss? First of all, they miss the fact that every real accomplishment, certainly in the business world, depends on interaction. You got to have that interaction. So understanding how to interact people is rather important. At the end of the day, one way or another, it is important, okay? The other thing I think that a lot of introverts miss is that social skills are really not that hard to learn. Okay? They're really not. When people explain, the sort of protocol for how you interact with somebody, here's the first thing you do. Here's the second thing you do. Now remember this principle. For example, one principle is that if you're just meeting someone for the first time and you don't know them, it's not like, they're famous or something. They're just another person, right? Well, if that person starts telling you all about themselves, that's usually a big turnoff, right? People enjoy talking about themselves. They enjoy talking about things that they're interested in, that they know, that they've done. They love giving you their opinions on stuff, right? So if you're meeting somebody, a great thing to do is to ask them questions about things that you think that they will want to talk about. You ask them about them. You ask them like, from the mundane to the important. The mundane might be small talk. You say, did you have a lot of trouble getting through traffic today or something like that? If you know that they drove to this place, they'll be happy to tell you, I've been here many times before and it usually takes me about an hour, but today the traffic was really, really easy or really light or something. They'll enjoy saying that stuff. As opposed to you going up to them and volunteering how much of an ordeal you had to get there, right? They won't care. They don't know you. They don't care about your opinion on it and everything under the sun, right? They're only listening to be polite. So just little principles like this, right? Social skills are not that hard to learn. If you're like me and you never had these really taught to you, properly, maybe go back and try and learn some of these and incorporate them. It's not that you can't talk. A lot of times that you just don't know what to say, or you choose maybe the thing to say that isn't the best, right? It seems to be other people seem to be bored or annoyed or they feel awkward or, whatever, right? You need knowledge and then you need practice. So if you know how to have a conversation or what to say, that's great. Now go out and practice it. Next time you meet a friend of yours that you would normally meet anyway, start applying some of these principles. See if it goes over even better than usual. Next time you got to go talk to a teacher or a boss or a coworker or, some long lost family member, start applying some of these principles. Same with the body language. I think it took me till age 30 to realize that you should look people in the eye when you talk to them. I don't know. I think I was way behind the curve on this, but, certainly in Western society, you look people in the eye, you don't kind of have a mesmerizing kind of hypnotizing kind of gaze, but, you basically look them in the eye. We occasionally look away, but just doing stuff like that. And this will help the other person feel like you're more interested in what they have to say. You're more engaged and you're a little harder to ignore, So just little rules like this. You need the knowledge and then you go out and practice it. And you do this for a couple of years, you're going to be a pro. You're going to learn this stuff and you'll be amazed at what a difference it makes in your interactions with other people. Incidentally, by the way, if you're looking to learn the knowledge with me, right, I have a lot of that in this course right here, because a big component of that course is how to network, how to discover jobs through networking, and then how to interact with people. So I do teach a lot of the principles here if you want to take that with me. If you're wanting to learn this stuff and you just want it all in one place, get that course. A lot of people have taken it and it solved a lot of problems for people. So I just want to plug that while I'm here because it is relevant. Okay. So yeah, I highly encourage everyone, if you could tack on these skills, you will do a lot better in job interviews. You will do a lot better in business. You will do a lot better in life. You will open up a lot of opportunities for yourself. A lot of times people get the job not because they're smarter than everybody else, but because they're the one that showed up, right? And that way they get that opportunity. Nobody else showed up, right? Like a lot of jobs, you might have applied through standard channels. Your application went in with 500 other people, right? But of the 500 people that applied for the job, how many showed up to talk to the hiring manager? Maybe one person did. So that person immediately jumps up to the top of the pile. Why? Because first of all, the act of showing up for it, that demonstrates that they're passionate about that job. They care about that job. You're not going to go to all the effort to show up and meet someone if it's a job you don't care about, right? So they're demonstrating that they care about that. Then, of the 500 applicants, 499 of them are a name on a piece of paper, and one of them is a real human being that the hiring manager has actually met. So the hiring manager got a free sample of what that applicant is like, what they're like to interact with, how good are their communication skills, how likable are they, do they have the right attitude, do they dress and present themselves professionally, do they look like they belong there? They already know that stuff about that one person who showed up. All the others, they don't know any of that. So the person who showed up already has elevated themselves above the crowd by the very act of showing up. Right? And if that person who showed up wowed the person with their professionalism and their communication skills, that's a double win. Right? So this is the effect that some of this stuff has, okay? There are many, many ways you can use this in your life to get a job or to open up other opportunities, but that's one of like many, many different ways, different examples. So hopefully this is getting through to some people out there, and this has piqued your interest, and hopefully I feel that my job is done if you have developed a respect for this, and if you're an introvert, you now have a desire to tack on some social skills because you see their importance.